स्लीपी क्लासेस के सारे सब्जेक्ट
मुझे पता चला था कि स्लीपी क्लासेस
Sleepy classes.
स्लीपी क्लासेस
Sleepy classes.
स्लीपी क्लासेस
स्लीपी क्लासेस
Sleepy classes.
स्लीपी क्लासेस
मेरा स्लीपी के साथ इंटरेक्शन हुआ
स्लीपी क्लासेस
स्लीपी क्लासेस
आई कंप्लीटली रिलाइड ऑन योर चैनल
स्लीपी की वीडियोस भी देखी है।
स्लीपी क्लासेस
Sleepy classes is one of those मतलब institutions जहाँ पे सभी टीचर अच्छे हैं.
Hello everyone, my name is Kasturi and I have cleared the UPSC Civil Services examination with an All India rank of 68. I am from the Thiruvananthapuram district of Kerala. So firstly, let me thank DKT, the Delhi Knowledge Track, for giving me this opportunity to be talking to you today. In my initial preparation days, I began as a person watching the DKT Topper Talks and videos and getting motivated, inspired, and getting to know deeper about the topper strategies. So today I feel so happy to be here sharing with you my strategy and tips for essay writing. So here are 10 important tips that you can keep in mind while writing an essay for the UPSC mains. So I'd like to list down the 10 topics and I'll explain to you more about it. The first point is your language and the expression. It should be simple, precise, clear, and the catchword would be brevity. So the language that you're trying to write in essay must be simple enough for a person to understand rather than using all these high sounding phrases. A simple but a clear language, that is what you need, so that what you intend to communicate is what reaches out to the reader out there. So the simplicity, the clarity of expression, and how precisely, or rather how concisely are you able to communicate it. So that's the first point. So I was also a graduate in English language and literature. So even during my college as well as the school days, I was a person who wrote quite a number of essays in different competitions and also during the university youth festivals, and I had won some prizes for the first prize during my college for the essay writing. So I was in connection with essay writing ever since I was in school and college. So coming to the UPSC essay writing, these were some of the things that I just had to polish upon and build upon. So the first thing is of course your language, which must be simple, and the expression must be very clear and concise. And the second point, coming to the structure of the essay, would be the logical connection that you are able to bring between the points. For instance, the connection that you have between the paragraphs. It must not look like chalk and cheese when you transition from one paragraph to the next. Rather, there must be a natural flow, a natural coherence that is there between the paragraphs. So the structuring and the logical flow that a reader is able to perceive while reading your essay. That's the second point. And thirdly, suppose we have a topic, we must be able to explore the different sides of the topic. For instance, this UPSC mains, I wrote the first essay on the topic of not all those who wander are lost. So in that sense, we can have different dimensions for that. Firstly, we can substantiate this topic and say that not all those who wander are lost. Yes, it's correct. For instance, we can bring in the example of Lord Buddha and say Buddha wandered, but doesn't mean he was lost. It was a way to discover himself, more about himself, and which was also beneficial to the world around. Another side of this topic would be to say that no, it's not like that. Some people who wander are also lost. So you can bring in another side for that. And another third dimension would be wandering is not the only reason for people getting lost. There could be other reasons as well. So that's another side of the topic. So especially in philosophical essays, we need to definitely have this perspective about different sides of that topic. And fourthly is how do you generate points for the essay? We know that we need to write 10 pages, 10 long pages, sometimes even 10 to 12 pages for the essay. So how can we bring in the content? How are we going to bring in the points to enrich the essay? There we can use different frameworks. For instance, a framework of history, say the past, the present, the future. That's one framework. Or another framework would be to put in the same main syllabus into it. For instance, just bring in points from the polity, think from an economic dimension, from a science and technology dimension, or from, say, a society dimension. So just bring in the different subjects that we have for mains itself, and using that we can generate points. So having such frameworks will help you to easily think and generate points. And the fifth point is about brainstorming. Rather than starting to write the essay immediately as you get the question, that's not something that's advisable, because before we start writing the essay, at least half an hour we need to brainstorm and we need to generate points. We need to have a logical clarity in our mind about what are we going to write. For instance, what are we going to write in the first paragraph, or what would be coming in the second paragraph? How am I going to structure this essay? So all those things you need to plan it out, and planning makes it perfect. So planning for the half an hour is what we definitely need to do before we start to write the essay. So that's brainstorming. And sixth point is, essay is not a monolithic whole. Rather, we need to have very logical subdivisions in the essay, which is possible through bringing in subheadings. So when you make subheadings, try to make it as creative and as catchy as possible, as attractive as possible, because the crux lies in that subheading. It should spur the reader on to read that section. So subheading doesn't mean the essay should have, say, 6 to 7 subheadings, or 3 or even 4 would be enough. So having catchy subheadings is another way to attract your reader to your essay. The seventh point is about bringing in creative value additions to your essay. For instance, when we write an essay, there are no hard and fast rules. Rather, we have enough scope to explore all the limits of our creativity there. So we can maybe write a poem there if you can think of it, or if you can craft a story that is related to the topic, a story would do. Or in other words, if you can remember a poem by, say, Robert Frost, and if you can quote it there, or a few lines from Rabindranath Tagore's Gitanjali. So I used to have a set of poems which I used to write it in my essays as well. For instance, as we know, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. So from Gitanjali, or say from Robert Frost, you have the poem called The Mending Wall, or Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, or any such important poems that you can think of. Another value addition would be to bring in quotes from sources like the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Bible, from Guru Granth Sahib. So from such philosophical and religious sacred texts, if we can quote certain important lines in the essay, that would also enhance the quality of the essay. And these are things that will also equally help us for the ethics. For instance, while speaking about righteousness, if we can quote a few lines about dharma from what Lord Krishna says to Arjuna in the essay, that would enhance the content as well as the quality of the essay, would give it more credibility and value as well. So such creative value additions is also something that we can think of. And writing an essay, it's not something that is an effort of, say, 2 months or 3 months. Rather, it is a long time effort. For instance, a book that you have read in your childhood, or a book that you might have come across during your college days. So any such book that you have read on, if you can quote it there. For instance, we can think of books, inspiring books like APJ Abdul Kalam's The Wings of Fire, or Michelle Obama's Becoming, or if there's any particular novel or a story that has inspired you, and if we can quote such certain books as well, it would make it more authentic.
स्लीपी क्लासेस के सारे सब्जेक्ट
मुझे पता चला था कि स्लीपी क्लासेस
Sleepy classes.
स्लीपी क्लासेस
Sleepy classes.
Sleepy classes.
Sleepy classes.
Sleepy classes.
sleepy classes
मेरा स्लीपी के साथ इंटरेक्शन हुआ.
Sleepy classes.
स्लीपी क्लासेस.
Sleepy classes.
I completely relied on your channel.
सिर्फ स्लीपी की वीडियोस भी देखी हैं.
स्लीपी क्लासेस.
Sleepy classes.
Sleepy classes is one of those मतलब institutions जहाँ पे सभी teacher अच्छे हैं.
And next point, coming to point number 8, is the objectivity of your essay. Even though the art of essay writing is subjective, but try to make your essay as much objective and logical as possible. For every argument that we are able to bring in the essay, if you can substantiate it with an objective fact or with your logical arguments, it would make it sound more credible and worthy. So having that logical objectivity to your essay is also very important, rather than simply saying the regular philosophical stuff. For instance, even if the topic is something like, say, not all those who wander are lost, try to bring in examples, say Lord Buddha, or the example of Gandhiji, or like Gandhiji's expedition in South Africa, or try to bring in examples of discoverers like Magellan or Christopher Columbus. So bring in as many examples and facts that you can try to make it more rich, to make it more authentic. And coming to the ninth point would be in the aesthetic appeal of your essay. So essay writing, it's not just about the content, it's also about your handwriting, the way you present it, your use of underlining. Do not underline everywhere, but only things that you want to catch the attention of. Or if you're writing a quote, if you want to highlight it, project it to the attention of the reader, maybe you can darken the quote markings, the inverted commas a little bit. And another way would be to use paragraph spacing. That's another art. When we use paragraphs, it must be of the consistent length. Shorter, simpler paragraphs would suffice. The spacing between the paragraphs become important. And when you write subheadings, if you can make it in the capital letters, and if you can make it kind of bit of projected, that would also look in good. So your way of writing also matters, the paragraph spacing and the paragraph length. And the final point about essay writing is hooking the reader in the introduction and the conclusion. As we know, when we go up reading anything, the first thing that we'll be reading would be the first paragraph. So the first impression is already formed there. And often what happens is we'll just flip the pages and we just go to the last paragraph, the conclusion, and we might read the conclusion there. So sometimes that last impression would be as equally important as the first impression that you would leave on your reader. So having something very worthy, or all these poetry, a story, or if you can link the conclusion with your introduction, then far better. So suppose you have a story in the introduction, and the conclusion, if you can hark back to it and bring the reader again to it, then the impression that would leave would be exceptional. So hooking the reader in the introduction and the conclusion would be the final thing that I'd like to tell you. So I had a score of 128 in the UPSC mains, and this was my first attempt. And the most important thing that you like to keep in mind when you venture out writing essays is essay writing is not a skill that evolves, say, overnight, or it's not something that is built in a day. As we say, Rome was built in a day, and everything takes time. So it's an art that you can definitely get perfect at with practice, and practice is definitely the key to writing good essays. And so practice writing essays and enjoy writing essays. Try to bring in all your creativity there, explore the frontiers of essay writing, and I'm sure you'll all make it there. So all the very best.